Who let this black dog into my boardroom?
Gregory Crane said it
Not
loud.
Wonder Woman.
12 board members heard every syllable. Damon Ingram, the only black face in the room.
That algorithm saves this company $200 million a year.
Gregory snorted.
An idea? From you? Stupid idea. Stupid pitch. Dogs don't have ideas. That's all you are.
You'll regret this, Mr. Crane.
A broke black nobody threatening me? You're fired. Get out!
No job, no savings, no connections. Just a fired black single dad with a crayon drawing and an idea his CEO called stupid. That idea didn't die. It followed him home. And what it became next? Gregory Crane never saw coming. Damon drove home with the windows down because the AC in his 12-year-old Honda had been broken since last summer. The Chicago air was thick and warm. His laptop sat on the passenger seat. His phone buzzed twice. He didn't check it. Nora was already asleep when he got home. Lorraine was sitting at the kitchen table, reading glasses on, her Bible open in front of her. She looked up the moment he walked in and knew. Mothers always know. "What happened, baby?" Damon set his laptop on the counter. "They let me go, Mom." Lorraine took off her glasses. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask what he did wrong. She just said, "Sit down. I'll heat up a plate." He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he'd spent hundreds of late nights writing code after Nora went to bed. The same table where Celeste used to sit across from him, grading papers while he coded, both of them too stubborn to go to sleep first. That table held more history than any boardroom. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. An email from Whitfield and Crane HR. Subject line: Position eliminated. Effective immediately. 2 weeks severance. Return your badge by Friday. That was it. 3 years of work reduced to 4 sentences. He set the phone face down on the table and stared at the wall. Later that night, after Lorraine fell asleep on the couch, Damon walked into Nora's room. She was curled up under her purple blanket, one arm around a stuffed bear. On her nightstand, under a cup of crayons, sat the original drawing, the one she'd made the night he first told her about his algorithm. Stick figure Damon on a stage, stars everywhere, big wobbly letters at the top. Daddy's big idea. She'd said that night, grinning with a missing front tooth. "When you show them, Daddy, they'll clap." He picked up the drawing, ran his thumb across the crayon stars, then folded it carefully and put it in his shirt pocket. The next morning at Whitfield and Crane, Gregory Crane walked into the building whistling. His assistant handed him 2 things, a latte and a quarterly churn report. Client losses were up 15%. The routing system was hemorrhaging money. Exactly the problem Damon's algorithm was designed to fix. In the hallway, Howard Whitfield, 71 years old, founder's grandson, mostly ceremonial, stopped Gregory by the elevator. Howard had a manila folder in his hand. "Gregory, that young man's presentation yesterday. I read his full deck after the meeting." Gregory sipped his latte. "Howard, I handled it." The numbers were compelling. The efficiency models were, "Howard." Gregory put his hand on the old man's shoulder. "Trust me, that kind of guy doesn't build things. He copies things. I did us a favor." Howard frowned. He opened his mouth, then closed it, turned around and walked back to his office. That was the first crack. Small, barely visible, but it was there. 3 days passed, then 5, then 10. Damon applied to 9 companies, software firms, logistics startups, tech consultancies. He tailored every resume. He followed up twice. Nothing. Not a single callback. Not even a rejection. Just silence. He didn't know it yet, but Gregory's HR team had quietly blackballed him. A few phone calls, a few whispered words, difficult to manage. Performance issues, not a team player. That's all it takes to erase a man in this industry. No paper trail, no proof, just doors closing one by one. By the second week, Damon was sitting at the kitchen table at 2 a.m, staring at his laptop screen. His savings account showed $11,243. Rent was due in 9 days. Nora needed new shoes for school. The Honda needed an oil change he couldn't afford. Lorraine found him like that, hunched over, eyes red, the cursor blinking on a blank job application. She sat down across from him. She didn't say, "It'll be okay." She didn't quote scripture. She just looked at the laptop screen, then at him, and said, "You still got that thing? That program you built?" "It's an algorithm, Mom. I don't care what it's called. Is it good?" Damon paused. He rubbed his eyes. "I think it could change how every shipping company in the country operates." Lorraine leaned forward. "Then stop begging people to hire you, baby. Hire yourself." She said it the way she said everything, like it was obvious, like she'd been waiting for him to catch up. Lorraine Ingram had spent 31 years mopping hospital floors, and in that time she'd learned one thing most CEOs never do. Dignity isn't something anybody can give you or take away. You either carry it or you don't. Damon looked at her for a long time. Then he looked at his laptop. The algorithm was still there. Every line of code, written on his own time on his own machine, saved to his own drive. It belonged to him. All of it. He closed the job application tab, opened a blank document, and typed 3 words at the top. Bridgepoint Systems, Inc. That night, he walked into Nora's room and pinned her crayon drawing above his laptop on the kitchen table. It stayed there, through every late night, every doubt, every moment he almost quit. $11,000, a kitchen table, a crayon drawing, and an algorithm that one man called the stupidest idea he'd ever heard. That was all Damon Ingram had. But somewhere on the 14th floor of Whitfield and Crane, the routing system was bleeding money, and Gregory Crane had just thrown away the only man who knew how to stop it. 6 weeks. That's how long Damon lived on 4 hours of sleep a night. Every evening the routine was the same. Dinner with Nora, homework, bath, story, lights out by 8. Then Damon would sit down at that kitchen table and code until his vision blurred. Lorraine stayed over most nights, sleeping on the couch, waking up at 5 to make breakfast before Nora's school bus came. The prototype came together piece by piece. Not in a gleaming tech lab, not in some venture-backed office with cold brew on tap. On a second-hand laptop, at a kitchen table with a wobbly leg, in a 2-bedroom apartment on the south side of Chicago, where the radiator made a banging sound every 30 minutes. But the algorithm worked. It more than worked. Damon ran simulations on public shipping data, port schedules, freight routes, fuel costs, warehouse turnover. Every simulation showed the same thing, 30 to 40% efficiency gain across the board. The math was undeniable. The problem was, math doesn't pay rent. His savings were down to $6,800. He found a startup pitch competition in Chicago, one of those events where 50 founders get 5 minutes each in front of a panel of investors. Entry fee? $250. He almost didn't register. That money was Nora's new shoes and 2 weeks of groceries. Lorraine saw him staring at the registration page. "What's that?" "A pitch competition. Investors watch you present and decide if they want to fund you." "How much to get in?" $250. Lorraine pulled her purse off the back of the chair, took out $300 bills, and set them on the table. "I was saving that for new curtains. The curtains can wait." The competition was held in a converted warehouse in the West Loop. 30 founders, exposed brick, open bar. Damon walked in wearing his only interview shirt, the same one he'd worn to the boardroom. He was the only black man in the room. Most of the other founders pitched like they were performing. Big voices, big gestures, words like disruptive and revolutionary flying around like confetti. One guy used the phrase paradigm shift 3 times in 4 minutes. When Damon's turn came, he didn't perform. He walked to the front, opened his laptop, and talked numbers. Quietly. No flash, no buzzwords. Just the algorithm, the data, the savings. He spoke for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Most of the judges looked bored before he hit minute 2. But one didn't. Elaine Woodson sat in the far left chair, 61 years old, silver hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She'd built a $900 million venture fund from nothing, and she'd sat through 10,000 pitches in her career. She could smell a real idea the way a chef smells a good kitchen, before she even tasted the food. She leaned forward at minute 3. By minute 4, she'd stopped writing notes. She was just listening. After the event, while the other founders networked at the bar, Damon packed up his laptop. He was heading for the door when a voice stopped him. "Your pitch was terrible." He turned. Elaine Woodson was standing 3 feet behind him, arms crossed. "Excuse me?" "Your pitch. Terrible. Monotone, no energy, no story. You presented like you were reading a tax return." She paused. "But your idea is extraordinary. The most original logistics model I've seen in 15 years. Can we talk?" They met the next afternoon at Elaine's office on Michigan Avenue, 32nd floor, the kind of office where everything is white and gray and the coffee comes in cups that cost more than Damon's shoes. Elaine grilled him for 2 hours straight. She pulled apart every assumption, challenged every data point, asked him why no one had built this before. Damon answered every question. No exaggeration, no performing. When he didn't know something, he said so. When she pushed too hard on a technical point, he pushed back with data. Finally, she leaned back and asked the question she'd been circling. "Why did you leave Whitfield and Crane?" Damon was quiet for a moment. "I didn't leave. I was fired. In front of the entire board. The CEO called my idea stupid. Then he called me worse than that." "Worse? How?" "He called me a dog, Mrs. Woodson. Because of the color of my skin." Elaine held his gaze for a long time. Then she opened a drawer and pulled out a term sheet. $2 million. Seed funding. She slid it across the desk. Damon picked it up, read every line, every clause, every footnote. Elaine watched him, expecting the reaction she always got. The shaky hands, the grateful nod, the signature before the ink was dry. Instead, Damon set the paper down, pulled a pen from his pocket, and circled 3 clauses. "These don't work for me." Elaine blinked. "Excuse me?" Clause 4 gives you controlling interest at Series A. Clause 9 lets you replace me as CEO with board approval. Clause 14 restricts hiring to your network referrals only. He slid the paper back. "I need 3 things, and they're not negotiable." "A man with $6,000 in the bank is giving me conditions?" "Yes, ma'am." He held up one finger. "First, I keep majority ownership. This is my idea, my code, my risk. I'm not giving control to anyone." Second finger. The company hires from underserved communities first, not as charity, built into the charter. The people no one gives a chance to, they get first shot. Third finger. You advise. You don't control. I don't need another boss telling me what I can and can't build. I need a partner. Elaine stared at him. In 30 years of venture capital, she had never, not once, had a founder with nothing negotiate like a man who had everything. Most people in Damon's position would have signed anything, taken any deal, begged for the money, and figured out the terms later. But Damon wasn't most people. Lorraine Ingram didn't raise a beggar. She raised a man who knew his worth, even when the world told him he had none. Elaine took off her reading glasses. "You've got nerve, Mr. Ingram." "I've got a daughter, Mrs. Woodson, and I promised her mother I'd build something that matters. I don't break promises." Elaine looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her pen, crossed out the 3 clauses, initialed the changes, and signed at the bottom. Deal. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived at Damon's apartment. Return address, Whitfield and Crane Technologies, Legal Division. Cease and desist. Gregory Crane was claiming Damon's algorithm was proprietary company technology, developed on company time, company property. Damon read it standing at the kitchen counter while Nora sat at the table doing homework. She looked up when she saw his face change. "Daddy, is someone being mean to you again?" Damon folded the letter, put it in the drawer, looked at his daughter and said, "Just somebody who forgot the difference between stealing and building, baby." That night, after Nora went to sleep, Damon sat at his laptop and opened every file, every commit log, every timestamp, every line of code. All written between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., all on his personal machine, all on his personal GitHub account. The evidence was clean. The work was his. Gregory Crane had just fired a shot across his bow. But he'd aimed at a man who had already survived the worst thing life could throw at him, losing Celeste. A cease and desist letter from a man in a glass tower didn't even register. Gregory wanted a fight. He didn't know it yet, but he'd just picked one with the wrong man at the wrong time, over the wrong idea. Bridgepoint Systems was born in a rented office above a barber shop in Bronzeville. 400 square feet, 2 folding tables, 3 second-hand monitors Damon bought off Facebook Marketplace for $80 each, a coffee maker that took 6 minutes to brew 1 pot, and on the wall, taped at eye level with a piece of Scotch tape, Nora's crayon drawing. Daddy's big idea. The stick figure with stars around his head, watching over everything. Damon didn't hire from Stanford. He didn't recruit from Google. He walked into a community coding boot camp on the South Side, the kind of place where 20-year-olds who couldn't afford college taught themselves Python from YouTube videos. And he sat in the back row for an entire class without saying a word. When it was over, he approached 3 students. The first was a 23-year-old woman named Keisha Grant. No degree, no connections. She'd been teaching herself code for 2 years while working the night shift at a gas station. The second was a kid named Andre Simmons, 19, who'd been in and out of the foster system since he was 6 and had built a delivery tracking app on a cracked laptop. The third was a quiet, focused man named Terrence Bell, 28, an Army vet with 2 tours and a gift for data architecture that he'd never been given a chance to use. Damon told them the same thing. "I can't pay you much right now, but I can promise you this. You'll never be invisible in my company. Your name will be on the work. Your voice will be in the room. And nobody will ever call your ideas stupid." All 3 said yes before he finished the sentence. The first 2 months were brutal. They worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. The office was too hot in the afternoons and too cold at night. The Wi-Fi dropped twice a day. Damon covered payroll from Elaine's seed money and didn't pay himself for the first 90 days. But something was happening in that little room above the barber shop, something Gregory Crane would never understand. These 4 people, thrown away by every system that was supposed to lift them up, were building something real, something beautiful. Not because they had resources, because they had each other. Keisha debugged routing models faster than anyone Damon had ever seen. Andre built a user interface so clean and intuitive that Elaine's own tech team couldn't believe a 19-year-old designed it. Terrence restructured the entire data pipeline in 3 weeks, A job that would have taken a corporate team 3 months. And every morning, when someone walked in and sat down at those folding tables, they looked up at the crayon drawing on the wall. It became a ritual, an inside joke, a mission statement. Andre started calling it the boardroom, because that drawing was the only board of directors Bridgepoint would ever need. Elaine visited the office for the first time in late October. She stood in the doorway for a full 10 seconds, looking at the folding tables, the tangled extension cords, the coffee maker held together with duct tape. She didn't say anything, but her face said everything. She sat down with Damon in the back corner, which was really just 2 chairs next to a stack of printer paper, and went through the numbers. Revenue projections, burn rate, hiring pipeline. Then she stopped at one line. "You hired a woman with no college degree as your lead engineer?" "Keisha Grant. She's the best coder in this room, including me." "Damon, I'm trying to help you build a company that investors will take seriously. No degree, no portfolio, no track record." "Elaine." Damon leaned forward. "You funded the algorithm. Fund the philosophy, too. The whole point of Bridgepoint is that talent doesn't come with a diploma. If you don't believe that, we have a bigger problem than Keisha's resume." Elaine went quiet. She looked out the window. When she turned back, there was something different in her eyes. Softer. Older. "My son's name was Connor," she said. "He was 26 when he died. Overdose. I was in a board meeting when the hospital called. I didn't pick up because I was closing a deal." She paused. "I built a $900 million fund, Damon, and I would trade every cent of it to hear his voice again." Damon didn't offer sympathy, didn't say, "I'm sorry." He knew those words were useless when the wound was that deep. He just said, quietly, "Then help me build something where people matter more than portfolios." Elaine looked at the crayon drawing on the wall, looked at Keisha and Andre and Terrence working at their folding tables, looked at a company that had nothing except the one thing her billion-dollar fund had always lacked: a soul. "Okay," she said. "Okay." That was the day Elaine Woodson stopped being an investor and started being family. 3 weeks later, Damon almost destroyed everything. It was a Thursday. Bridgepoint had just landed its first pilot program. A regional shipping company in Indiana wanted to test the algorithm on their fleet of 200 trucks. The deadline was tight. Damon was working around the clock. He forgot to eat. He forgot to call. And he forgot that Thursday was November 14th, Nora's 9th birthday. Lorraine called him at 6 in the evening. He picked up and heard the silence before she spoke. That particular silence only a mother uses when she's furious but too dignified to yell. "Damon James Ingram, your daughter has been sitting at this table in her birthday dress for 2 hours. The candles on the cake have melted down to nothing. You want to tell me where you are?" His stomach dropped. He looked at the clock, looked at his screen, looked at the crayon drawing on the wall. "I'm on my way." He drove home 20 miles over the speed limit. When he walked in, Nora was still sitting at the table. Purple dress, paper crown she'd made herself, 9 candles, melted to stubs, on a lopsided chocolate cake Lorraine had baked from scratch. She looked up at him, and she didn't cry. That was worse. Crying would have meant she was surprised. She wasn't surprised. She was used to it. Lorraine pulled him into the hallway. She didn't whisper. "Celeste didn't die so you could become a ghost in your own daughter's life. That little girl in there? She's not your second priority. She's your only priority. The company can wait. Childhood doesn't." Damon felt those words hit him like a wall. Because Lorraine wasn't wrong. He'd spent so long trying to build a legacy for Nora that he'd started missing the life he was building it for. The next morning, he canceled every meeting, took Nora to the Shed Aquarium. They spent 5 hours looking at jellyfish and penguins and a sea turtle Nora named Mr. Pancake. They ate hot dogs on the lakefront. She laughed so hard at a seagull stealing someone's French fries that she got hiccups. On the drive home, she pulled out a crayon and a napkin from the glove box and drew something. When she was done, she held it up. It was the Bridgepoint logo, a bridge with the sunrise, drawn in purple and orange crayon. "This one's for your office wall too, Daddy." He put it next to the original drawing the next morning. Keisha saw it and smiled. Andre took a picture. Terrence said, "We got a new board member." The pilot launched in December. Within 90 days, the Indiana Shipping Company saved $8.2 million. Not projected, not modeled, actual, verified, bottom-line savings. The CEO called Damon personally. "I've been in logistics for 30 years. I've never seen anything like this." Word spread. 3 more companies signed by February, 5 more by March, 12 by June. Revenue was doubling every month. Elaine's $2 million investment was already worth 50 times what she'd put in. The tech press started calling. A reporter from Crane's Chicago Business wrote a feature. The headline ran across the top of the business section in bold letters. "The idea one CEO called stupid is saving the shipping industry millions." The article mentioned Whitfield and Crane by name. It mentioned the boardroom. It mentioned the firing. It didn't mention the word dog, but anyone who'd been in that room knew exactly what had been said. Damon didn't send the article to Gregory. He didn't need to. Because at 7:42 that morning, in his corner office on the 14th floor, Gregory Crane opened the Crane's Chicago Business website with his morning coffee. He read the headline. He read the name. He set down his cup. And for the first time in his life, his hand was shaking. While Gregory's hand trembled, 3 floors below him, his engineers were staring at a screen full of failing code. A knockoff of Damon's algorithm that Gregory had secretly ordered them to build. And it was about to blow up in the worst possible way. The lawsuit landed on a Tuesday morning. Damon was at the Bronzeville office, standing behind Keisha's chair reviewing a new routing model, when Tessa Moore called. Tessa was Bridgepoint's attorney, a 32-year-old Harvard law graduate Elaine had connected them with. Sharp, fearless, and the kind of lawyer who read contracts the way a sniper reads a map. Every detail, every angle, every possible kill shot. "Damon, sit down." "I'm already standing. Just tell me." Whitfield and Crane filed a $50 million lawsuit against Bridgepoint Systems this morning. Intellectual property theft. They're claiming your algorithm was developed using proprietary company tools, on company time, with company data. They want full ownership of the codebase, all revenue to date, and an injunction to shut down your operations immediately. Damon closed his eyes. Keisha looked up. Andre stopped typing. Terrence set down his coffee. The room went quiet. $50 million, Damon said. That's not the worst part. They've also filed an emergency motion to freeze your accounts. If the judge grants it, you can't make payroll next week. Damon looked at the crayon drawing on the wall, the stick figure with the stars. He could hear Nora's voice in his head. "When you show them, Daddy, they'll clap." Nobody was clapping right now. "What do we do, Tessa?" "We fight. But you need to understand something. Gregory Crane didn't file this lawsuit to win. He filed it to bury you. The discovery process alone will take months. They'll drown you in paperwork, depositions, subpoenas. They have a legal team of 30. You have me. This is a war of attrition, and he's betting you can't afford to survive it." Gregory wasn't just fighting in the courtroom. He was fighting in the press. Within 48 hours of the lawsuit filing, anonymous sources close to Whitfield and Crane started talking to tech reporters. The narrative was surgical. Damon Ingram was a disgruntled former employee. He'd been fired for performance issues. The algorithm was built on company infrastructure. He'd stolen proprietary data on his way out the door. None of it was true. All of it was effective. The story hit 3 major tech blogs in the same week. Headlines Damon couldn't escape. Bridgepoint founder accused of stealing former employer's technology. Whitfield and Crane files $50 million suit against ex-employee's startup. Questions surround the origins of Bridgepoint's core algorithm. 2 client contracts paused pending the lawsuit. A third called Elaine directly. "We love the product, but we can't be associated with a company under IP litigation. Call us when it's resolved." Damon's face was on tech blogs next to the word theft. The same face Gregory Crane had called a dog. The same face that had walked out of that boardroom with nothing but a crayon drawing. And now the world was being told that face belonged to a thief. Nora came home from school on a Friday afternoon. She set her backpack on the floor, sat at the kitchen table, and didn't start her homework. She just sat there. Lorraine noticed first. "What's wrong, baby girl?" "A boy at school said Daddy stole something. He said his mom read it on the internet." Lorraine's jaw tightened. She looked at Damon. Damon knelt down in front of his daughter. "Nora, look at me. I didn't steal anything. I built something. There's a difference. And sometimes, when you build something good, people who didn't build it try to take it from you. That's what's happening right now." "But why?" "Because they're scared, baby. Scared people do mean things." Nora thought about that for a second. Then she said, "When I build my Lego castle and somebody knocks it down, I just build it again. Bigger." Damon pulled her into his arms and held on until she squirmed away to get a snack. The legal fight was suffocating. Gregory's legal team, 30 attorneys from one of Chicago's most prestigious firms, buried Tessa in discovery requests. 14,000 documents, 6 depositions, motions to compel, motions to dismiss counterclaims, motions on top of motions. Every week, a new filing. Every filing, another bill Bridgepoint could barely afford to pay. Tessa fought back with precision. She pulled every commit log from Damon's personal GitHub account, every timestamp, every file path. The code was written between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., night after night, on a personal laptop, using personal software licenses, connected to Damon's home Wi-Fi network. Not a single byte touched a Whitfield and Crane server. The evidence wasn't just clean, it was airtight. But evidence doesn't matter when you can't afford to present it. Gregory's strategy wasn't about facts, it was about exhaustion. Bleed the startup dry. Force a settlement. Take the algorithm for pennies on the dollar. He'd done it before to smaller companies. It always worked. It was working now. By month 3 of litigation, Bridgepoint's legal costs had hit $400,000. Elaine covered most of it, but even she had limits. The team took a collective pay cut. Andre started sleeping at the office to save on rent. Keisha picked up freelance work on weekends to cover her bills. Nobody complained. Nobody left. Damon sat alone in the office at 2 in the morning on a Wednesday. The screens were dark. The coffee was cold. The crayon drawing hung on the wall in front of him, barely visible in the glow of a streetlight through the window. He stared at it for a long time. He thought about Celeste. He thought about the night she died, the phone call, the hospital hallway, the doctor's face. He thought about Nora asking why Daddy was crying. He almost quit. Right there, 2 in the morning, alone in a room above a barber shop. He almost picked up his phone and called Tessa and said, "Settle. Give Gregory whatever he wants. Just make it stop." Then the door opened. Lorraine walked in carrying a thermos of coffee and a Tupperware container of beef stew. She didn't ask why he was sitting in the dark. She didn't ask if he was okay. She set the food down, pulled up a chair, sat next to him, and said one word. Eat. He ate. She sat with him. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do for you is just refuse to let you be alone. When he finished, Lorraine looked at the drawing on the wall. You remember when Nora made that? The night I told her about the algorithm. She didn't understand a word you said. You know that, right? She just saw her daddy's face light up when he talked about it. That's why she drew the stars. Lorraine paused. That little girl didn't draw stars because she understood your idea, Damon. She drew them because she understood you. He didn't quit. He went back to work the next morning, and the morning after that, and the morning after that. 3 weeks later, the case broke open. Curtis Tate had been silent for 14 months. He'd been in that boardroom the day Gregory humiliated Damon. He'd sat in his chair and said nothing while a good man was called a dog and thrown out like garbage. He'd gone home that night, sat in his driveway for 20 minutes, and told himself it wasn't his problem. But it was. It had been eating him alive. Curtis was a mid-level engineer at Whitfield & Crane. Solid, reliable. The kind of guy who kept his head down and did his job. After Damon was fired, Curtis watched Gregory's team do something that made his stomach turn. They pulled Damon's presentation files from the company's server, slides he'd uploaded for the board meeting, and began reverse engineering the algorithm. Not improving it, not adapting it, copying it, line by line, concept by concept. Gregory called it internal development. Everybody in engineering knew what it actually was. The knockoff algorithm launched 6 months later under the name CraneRoute. It was sold to a major national client, a freight company running 12,000 trucks across 38 states. Within 90 days, CraneRoute failed. Catastrophically. Routing errors cascaded through the system. Trucks sent to wrong warehouses, shipments delayed by weeks. The client lost $30 million in a single quarter. They terminated the contract and threatened to sue. Gregory buried the failure, blamed the engineering team, fired 2 junior developers as scapegoats, and never mentioned Damon's name. Curtis watched all of it, and something inside him finally snapped. On a Sunday evening, Curtis sat in his car outside Tessa Moore's office. The engine was off. A USB drive sat in his palm. On it, 247 internal emails. Gregory ordering the reverse engineering. Gregory approving the CraneRoute launch despite engineering warnings. Gregory instructing HR to blackball Damon at every company in the industry. Gregory telling his CFO to make the problem go away when the client threatened legal action. Curtis's hands were shaking. He knew what walking through that door meant. Career over, pension gone, subpoenaed, probably sued, definitely blacklisted. Everything he'd spent 15 years building, gone the moment he handed over that drive. He thought about Damon's face in the boardroom, the silence, the 12 people, himself included, who didn't say a word. He got out of the car, walked inside, sat down across from Tessa Moore and set the USB drive on her desk. I was in that room. I heard what Gregory said. I saw Damon's face. And I said nothing. I've been carrying that silence for 14 months. He pushed the drive forward. I'm done being quiet. Tessa plugged in the drive, opened the first email, read it twice, looked up at Curtis. Do you understand what this means? It means Gregory Crane is done. And it means I can finally sleep at night. The emails leaked within a week. Not from Tessa, from a journalist at the Chicago Tribune who'd been investigating Whitfield & Crane's client losses. Once the story broke, it detonated. National news picked it up by day 2. Not just business press, mainstream media. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times. Because this wasn't just a corporate IP dispute anymore. This was a story about a black man who was humiliated, fired, robbed, and smeared by a CEO who called him a dog in front of a silent room. The hashtag started on a Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, hashtag Justice for Damon was trending in all 50 states. By Friday, it was global. 15 million people watched a 12-second clip recorded on a phone by someone at the original board meeting of Gregory Crane saying the words, "We hired you to code, not to think." 12 seconds. That's all it took to end a man's legacy. Whitfield and Crane's stock dropped 40% in 5 trading days. 3 board members resigned. 2 major clients terminated contracts. Howard Whitfield, the founder's grandson, the man who'd said the numbers were compelling and then walked away, issued a public statement distancing himself from Gregory Crane. Gregory went on CNBC to do damage control. The anchor asked him about the emails. Gregory leaned into the camera and said, "This is nothing more than a disgruntled employee's vendetta against a company that gave him every opportunity." It was the worst thing he could have said, because by then, the whole world had seen the clip. The whole world had read the emails, and the whole world knew exactly what kind of opportunity Gregory Crane had given Damon Ingram. That night, a federal prosecutor in Chicago opened a case file. At the top, 2 words, Gregory Crane. And underneath, 3 charges that would change everything: fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Federal Courthouse, downtown Chicago, a Tuesday in March. News vans lined Dearborn Street. Camera crews jostled on the steps. The courtroom was packed 20 minutes before the session began. Damon Ingram walked in at 8:47 a.m. Dark suit, white shirt, no tie. In his shirt pocket, the crayon drawing. Always the drawing. Behind him sat Elaine Woodson, straight-backed, hands folded. Next to her, Lorraine, Sunday dress, church hat, Bible in her purse. And beside Lorraine, holding her grandmother's hand, Nora. 9 years old, purple jacket. A homemade button pinned to her chest. "I love Daddy." Gregory Crane arrived with 6 attorneys. Navy suit, gold cufflinks. He looked thinner than the photos, smaller. The kind of shrinking that happens when a man realizes the room is no longer his. Judge Patricia Bowman entered at 9 sharp. "Let's begin. Call witnesses." Curtis Tate took the stand first. Tessa Moore approached. "Mr. Tate, can you describe what happened at the Whitfield and Crane board meeting on June 15th? Damon Ingram presented the most brilliant piece of logistics engineering I'd ever seen. The math was flawless. The projections were conservative. Curtis paused. The CEO called him a dog, called the idea stupid, told him people like him don't build things, they carry things, then fired him on the spot. Did anyone object? Curtis looked at his hands. No, I didn't, and I've lived with that every day since. What happened after? Gregory ordered the engineering team to reverse engineer Damon's algorithm. They stole his work, renamed it CraneRoute, sold it to a major client. When it failed and cost that client $30 million, Gregory buried the evidence and fired 2 junior engineers as scapegoats. Gregory's attorneys stood. Objection. Mr. Tate is a disloyal. Judge Bowman didn't look up. Overruled. Sit down. Mr. Tate, why did you come forward? Curtis looked across the courtroom at Damon. Because I watched a good man get destroyed for the color of his skin. And I did nothing. His voice broke. I was a coward. But staying quiet, I couldn't do it anymore. A juror in the second row wiped her face with the back of her hand. Then Tessa called Damon to the stand. She asked about his background, his education, Celeste, the nights at the kitchen table. Damon answered everything in the same even voice. No performance, just facts. Then she asked the question the entire courtroom was waiting for. Mr. Ingram, What do you want from this proceeding? Damon reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out the crayon drawing, unfolded it carefully, held it in both hands, not for the jury, just in his lap. Like a prayer. When I was fired, my daughter asked me why I was sad. I told her Daddy had a big idea, but the people in charge didn't want to hear it. She drew this picture that night, a stick figure on a stage with stars around his head. She wrote at the top, Daddy's big idea. His thumb moved across the crayon lines. I carried this drawing into every pitch meeting, every late night, every time I wanted to quit. Not because it reminded me of my idea, because it reminded me of her belief. An 8-year-old girl who never once doubted her father. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here for money. I'm here because somewhere right now, there's another person with a brilliant idea sitting in a room full of people who've already decided they don't matter. And I need them to know, your idea is not stupid. Your voice is not small. And the people who laugh at you, they're afraid, because they know you're the future they can't build. He looked down at the drawing one more time. My daughter drew stars around my head. I'm here to make sure those stars were real. Absolute silence, the kind that has weight. Lorraine's head was bowed, tears on both cheeks. Nora staring at her father with eyes so wide and proud, it could break you in half. A juror in the front row, tears falling openly. Gregory's attorneys had stopped writing. Judge Bowman let the silence hold. Then she spoke. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. Full intellectual property ownership is awarded to Mr. Ingram. Damages to be determined in a separate hearing. Counterclaims dismissed with prejudice. She looked directly at Gregory Crane. Mr. Crane, in 30 years on this bench, I have seen every kind of arrogance, but dismissing a man's intellect because of his station, and then stealing the very idea you ridiculed, that is a particular kind of cowardice. This court does not reward cowardice. Gregory sat motionless, staring at nothing. It was over. Everyone knew it was over. Nora pushed past the wooden gate, ran to her father, and wrapped both arms around his waist. Damon knelt down, held his daughter. The crayon drawing pressed between his palm and her back. Outside the courthouse, the image that went viral wasn't Gregory being escorted by lawyers. It was a father kneeling on the floor, holding his daughter, with a crayon drawing crushed between them. 14 million shares in 24 hours. 5 words everywhere. Daddy's big idea was real. The ruling hit the news before Damon made it home from the courthouse. Every major network ran it. CNN broke into their afternoon programming. The New York Times posted the story at 4:12 p.m., and it became their most read article by dinner. But the take that mattered most came from a 9-year-old girl in the back seat of a 12-year-old Honda, still wearing her I love Daddy button, who looked at her father in the rearview mirror and said, Daddy, does this mean the mean man can't be mean anymore? Yeah, baby. That's exactly what it means. Good. She went back to drawing on her napkin. Lorraine sat in the passenger seat, her church hat in her lap. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she reached across and put her hand on Damon's arm. Your father would have been proud today. Celeste, too. Damon's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded and drove his family home. Within 3 months, Bridgepoint Systems crossed a $500 million valuation. Forbes put Damon on the cover. The headline? The $500 million man they called nobody. But the magazine cover isn't the scene that matters. The scene that matters happened at 7:15 on a Tuesday morning. Damon reading the article at the kitchen table. Nora across from him eating Cheerios. She looked up, pointed at his phone, and said, "You look weird in a suit." He laughed. A real laugh. The kind he hadn't made in a very long time. Lorraine printed 3 copies. One on the refrigerator between Nora's drawings and a coupon for laundry detergent. One for her pastor, and one she put in a small frame next to Celeste's photograph on the living room shelf. Damon found it 3 days later. Stood there a long time. Whispered, "We did it, baby," and walked out of the room. He announced the Celeste Ingram Foundation 2 weeks later. Named for his wife. Funded with $25 million. Seed funding, mentorship, and legal protection for founders from underrepresented communities. Elaine matched it personally. $50 million in the first year. Damon didn't give a long speech. He'd said everything he needed to say in that courtroom. He just said, "My wife believed that everyone deserves a seat at the table. This foundation doesn't give people seats. It builds more tables." Curtis Tate started at Bridgepoint on a Monday. Title? Head of Ethics and Compliance. A position Damon created for him. On his desk, a framed note in Damon's handwriting. "You spoke when it mattered. That's enough." Curtis read it twice, put his head in his hands, and cried. 14 months of shame pouring out of a man who finally felt like he deserved to breathe again. Gregory Crane was indicted on federal charges in June. Fraud, conspiracy, obstruction. Whitfield and Crane was gutted in a fire sale. The boardroom where 12 men watched a good man be called a dog was leased to a co-working startup. Nobody bid on Gregory's nameplate. He was last seen leaving the courthouse on a gray afternoon. No entourage, no cameras. Just a man in a wrinkled suit walking to a parking garage alone. Not destroyed, just irrelevant. The world had moved past him. The last scene happens on a sidewalk. A bright Thursday morning in October. Golden light, cool air, leaves turning. Damon walks Nora to school. Same route, past the bodega, past the bus stop where Lorraine used to wait at 5 in the morning, past the mural on the barbershop wall. Nora stops halfway, holds out a rolled-up piece of paper. "I made you something." He unrolls it. A new crayon drawing. But this time, the stick figure isn't alone. Dozens of figures, all colors, all sizes, standing together on a bridge with a sunrise behind them. At the top, in wobbly handwriting, "Daddy's bigger idea." His eyes fill. He doesn't wipe them. He folds it carefully, puts it in his shirt pocket, right over his heart. She turns to walk inside, gets 3 steps, turns back. "Daddy, when I grow up, I'm gonna have a big idea too." He kneels down on the sidewalk. "Baby, you already do." She grins, runs through the school doors without looking back, the way kids do when they know someone will be there when they come out. If someone ever called your idea stupid, drop it in the comments. I want to hear it. The world needs more Damons. Subscribe if you believe talent doesn't have a zip code. Share this if you know someone who needs to hear it today. That crayon drawing started on an 8-year-old's nightstand. It ended up in a federal courtroom, on an office wall, and in the shirt pocket of a man worth $500 million. Some people frame their diplomas. Damon Ingram framed his daughter's belief. And that made all the difference.
A man gets called a dog, gets fired, gets sued for $50 million, and that man built a $500 million company from a kitchen table. But the algorithm didn't save Damon Ingram, a mother who said, "Stop begging, hire yourself did." A little girl who drew stars while her daddy had did. 3 strangers from a coding boot camp who show up at folding table and refuse to leave did. Gregory Crane had the legal army, the corner office, the power to erase a man with a phone call, and he lost to a crayon drawing and the pot a big two, a 2 in the morning, because believe from the people who love you, it was more than any boardroom full of titles. So let me ask you this, even a 9-year-old girl can see what her executive couldn't. Maybe the question isn't who believe in you, maybe is, have you stopped believing in yourself? Drop your story in the comments, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and share this with someone who needs it. Damon Ingram didn't frame his diploma, he framed his daughter's belief. That made all the difference.